analytics platform and what's the future landscape. I'm glad to have Knud, the CEO of IoT Analytics here to share his insights about IoT and Edge AI intelligence markets. Hi, Knud. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Hank. Good to be here.
Yeah. So to start with, could you please to introduce IoT Analytics and talk about what you see the Edge intelligence market?
Yeah, so my name is Knud. I represent IoT Analytics. We're a boutique market research firm based out of Germany, but we're operating globally. We focus on topics such as IoT, Edge, AI, and produce a ton of market research on these topics. And as such, we talk to vendors such as Advantech, but also others. We talk to end users, we do surveys with end users, and we try to portray what's going on in those topics that we look at. And I mean, to your question about what we see, right? So I think there are obviously a ton of trends, and you see AI being one of the top things. So I've been in this industry for 10 years, and we've kind of seen all these IoT movements going to the cloud. And for the last years, it's always been, this is to move to the cloud, this is moving to the cloud. And one of the interesting things is we're starting to see that pendulum of things moving to the cloud to actually spin back a little bit. And suddenly the edge is becoming interesting. And we're seeing it here for the first time, really, that the topic of edge and edge AI is suddenly coming up.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So actually, Advantech and IoT Analytics, we already collaborate for many years, and we rely on their research a lot because they help us to identify the future trend and the future market. So, talk about the intelligent edge, or maybe we can say that bring the AI to the edge. Let's deep dive a little bit. How do you see the mega trend or main trend you've seen from your research, based on your research?
Yeah, I mean, like I already said, we are starting to see edge becoming way more interesting because you can do things at the edge right now that you couldn't necessarily do 5 or maybe even 3 years ago. And the edge itself brings some promises that the cloud cannot do. So if I do compute something on the edge, I'm not sending it to the cloud. That means I don't have the cost of sending it there. I don't have the cost of cloud computing. I have the ability to keep the data locally, so it's more secure, more private. So one of the things we've really seen in the last 2 years, I would say, is hardware companies that are at the edge, such as Advantech, have upgraded their hardware with all kinds of AI accelerators, GPUs, NPUs. And if you go to the booth here at Advantech, it feels like every piece that you are showing is actually AI enabled. And this was not the case 2 years ago. And this is not the case with some of the other companies out there. So it's just been happening in the last years, really, that there's been a real upgrade of the hardware. So now you have the hardware ready, whether it's an NPU and GPU, and now you can do amazing things at the edge without needing the cloud. So that's kind of the first thing that we see. Now, the second thing we see is that, hey, now you have the hardware in place, but you still have to help the developer actually to make it happen. So you need software. And so that software, I think you see it here also at your booth, you have that. The chip companies are starting to introduce software. But the things you did when developing AI in the cloud, you cannot necessarily use the same tools to develop for the edge. And so that software ecosystem around what software do you develop for the edge, for an edge device? If I want to run, so I saw here, you have a robot, for example. If I want to run an application on the robot, I cannot program that in the cloud and suddenly push it onto the robot, or I could. There are specific constraints, there are specific other things, and you need to have all that infrastructure in place. And we're seeing that really in the market right now, that there's a new ecosystem of edge hardware and edge software and with it a few other things establishing right now.
So what I could say, if I reframe your phrase, is very complicated. No matter hardware is very complicated, software is very complicated, the scenario is very complicated. Can I say that?
I think you can say it's very complicated.
Yeah.
It's essentially not the same as what we've already seen in the cloud.
Yeah.
And I think we're just at the beginning of seeing that software stack evolving right now.
Okay. So very interestingly, when we met each other yesterday, we have some short talk. I asked Knud why he established IoT analytics. He said that because in the 10 years back, there are many new things happen. Yeah, especially the many things connected together. So actually, it's, what we've seen is very similar to echo to your observation. What we have seen is very similar. In 40 years back, when Advantech just started our business, actually we call it Edge 1.0. At that time, we call it an isolated edge, isolated computer. We bring every edge device working for just one function. It's a way we can call it Edge 1.0. But moving back to maybe 2010 or 2008, something like that, we can call it IoT Edge, right? If you remember that during that time everybody is talking about M2M, machine to machine. Everybody is very exciting that finally we can connect every device together. So the main theme is connectivity. And during that time, we launched our first platform is Wise IoT. Yeah. So I can remember that everybody is trying to bring the real data, bring all the data from the physical world back to the cloud. So the most important thing for the edge is how to collect the right data and collect the amount of the data and send to the cloud. So this is right now we can call it Edge 2.0. Yeah. So in Edge 2.0, the intelligence is in the cloud. Do you agree?
You said the edge is in
Edge 2.0.
The intelligence is in the
Yes.
cloud.
Intelligence in cloud.
And there's some in the cloud and some at the edge.
Yes.
In the new one. On 2.0. You're 2.0. Yes.
Yeah.
So in 2.0 was in the cloud, but then you talk about 3.0, right?
3.0 is the era we are facing. We are facing now. So echo to what you observe.
So maybe I can try to give an example. So maybe it's something that everybody kind of knows. Let's think of a point of sale terminal. So if you are in a restaurant and you're paying with a credit card, 15 years ago, you had a system that doesn't exist anymore. 5 years ago, there were these new companies, I don't know in Taiwan, but in the US, there were like Square and Shopify. So suddenly it was cloud first. Everything you're connecting, you're paying, and it's connected to the cloud. It's verifying, it's coming back and saying, oh, all is good. So that's a good example of that 2.0. Everything got connected. You did the intelligence in the cloud. So now what's happening? You're starting to see 3.0. Restaurants, it's sometimes annoying. They don't have, I don't know about in Taiwan, but in Germany, they don't have connection. And suddenly you need to wait to pay. We are now seeing what you call 3.0, edge first kind of systems that even if it's not connected to the cloud, it has intelligence at the edge. Yes. So it can, for example, process your transaction securely without sending to the cloud. So the architecture is changing. You still need the cloud in some form, but you're doing a lot of the intelligence at the edge. And whether it's on the robots and the point of sale systems, there's a ton of different applications that are now getting more intelligent at the edge in some conjunction with the cloud. And I think that's the fascinating part here.
Exactly. So when we talk about 3.0, it's a cloud edge collaboration. Intelligence is federated intelligence. Some intelligence in cloud, some intelligence in the edge. Yeah, I think it's a very promising future. But from your point of view, what's the challenges or what's the hurdles that when customers want to bring such kind of intelligence or AI capability into the edge? what prevent them to doing this? From what's your
I mean, we do a lot of work in manufacturing. So kind of smart factory settings is one of the key areas that we focus on. So here I'm bringing maybe some survey and interview examples. So generally, when you look at someone trying to make a factory smart, when I ask them what is your challenge, they will say number one is cybersecurity. There are huge vulnerabilities. I mean, whether it's from everybody has these stories of ransomware, suddenly operations are shutting down. It does exist, and people are very afraid. So cybersecurity is probably the number one concern for any of manufacturer and probably also in other industries right now. It's a very, very delicate topic. So here I would actually say edge is one of the things that you can then helps you overcome this challenge, because if you are not sending the data to the cloud because you're computing at the edge. So right now the paradigm is, hey, we got to send everything in the cloud because in the cloud everything is very powerful. You can do AI, but if you can actually do the same thing at the edge, you don't send it to the cloud. You are actually getting rid of one security kind of issue. The second big thing that when we talk to them is data management, and this applies to the edge perhaps even more than it does to the cloud, and this is a key challenge for the edge, is so 5 years ago it was often, how do I get the data out of the devices into somewhere, into a central repository? I think we have a lot of that somewhat solved right now, but now you have the era of AI, which needs all that data, and the question is, how do I get it AI ready? And you realize that maybe your sensor one sends temperature data in Celsius and the other one in Fahrenheit, and you need to bring it together. It's a very simple example, but you need to contextualize the data and to bring it together. And then you need to use that for AI modeling, and then you need to have those AI models deployed, and you have it managed, and you have to have them updated. And all of those things are kind of the data management that needs to run in the background. Which is extremely tough to do, because if you then do it at the cloud and at the edge, you have different environments, you need to some things. So there's a ton of different things that kind of come up with data management. So data management has a lot of facets, and it's certainly, I think there's a wake-up call right now. The CEOs of companies are saying, we got to do AI, and the people below are saying, wait a minute, but in order to do it, we got to get our data management in order. And so that's why you see a lot of activity. And I'll just bring up two other points quickly. One around integration complexity. When you're in an enterprise, this needs to get integrated into your ERP system, into your CRM, into wherever, depending on how you're using these applications. And we hear a lot that it's not super easy to bring it into existing systems. And then what very often gets overlooked is the entire culture and change management issue around when you are implementing a new system, edge, AI, you need to educate the people. You need to have stakeholders communicating from day one that things are different. That hey, you are now you're working with an AI tool. You need to know what the limits are. Like there's so many different things that are coming up. So there are a lot of challenges, I would say. But that's why we're here, to discuss them and to overcome them.
Actually, I would say it's not only the technology issue. Actually, there are lots of organization, skill set, and people issue. Right?
A lot of people would say those are number one. Because it's for any technology change, I've looked at this for the last 10, 15 years.
Yes.
People issues are
always there.
Are always the ones that people that are there, and yeah.
Okay, yeah. So exactly as you mentioned, maybe I can take another angle to rephrase your what you mentioned. What we think is exactly the same as you, but we categorize into three major problems our customers are facing, because many of the customers tell us that, oh yes, we do want to bring the AI to the edge, but how to do? How do we start? And what skill set do we have? They have no idea. So after discussing or interaction with our clients, we found that the most important thing is that how to manage the complexity of the edge. The complexity, we can divide it into three categories. The first one, and the most important one, as you mentioned rightly, the data management. Because the data at the edge is not like the data at the cloud. Right now, what we call about the AI or LLM, the data source is coming from internet, from the text. But many of the AI at the edge are very very fragmentized, and they are very purpose built. So the data, how to bring the right data and pre-process the data for AI modeling is a big challenge. Just you mentioned that maybe we are doing the same thing, but actually the data source required are different for different companies. So the data management is a very important issue. The second is that the platform is very different. The so-called platform is the hardware platform. So when we see the AI to the edge, we can see the NPU, CPU, GPU, TSU, even we have x86, ARM-based, lots of different platforms on the edge, and they have a different function. They have a different algorithms. So many of the customers told me that, oh, Hank, I developed a model, I trained a model running on the NVIDIA servers. However, I could not run on the Qualcomm hardware. Why? They are all ARM-based. So that's a very challenge that for many of the developers, they need to take lots of efforts to convert their models, convert their experience in different environments. So we try to decrease such a skill gap, or I would say it's a complexity gap. So this is why our WISE Edge is coming up. Yeah. So maybe I can talk a little bit more in technology side, is that we try to build up an API-oriented environment. So we can bring all the device management, all the data management, all the model management easily be adapted to customers' environment. For example, they have a process to generate factory automation or factory some functions. So when they want to adopt the AI, they can just upgrade their function required and then combine into their existing system. So what they can get is that they can manage all the device, they can assure the data source, even they can assure the security. You mentioned the security is very important. And that's the basic idea we developed this WISE Edge platform. But apart from the technology side, I think the most important thing is that because of the complexity issue, we found that there's no any company or there's no any solution can solve the problems the customer are facing. So we need to build up the ecosystem. The ecosystem means that we need to bring more stakeholders, including technology vendors, including ISP, including service partners, including the consulting companies. Then everybody can come together to help the customer's digital journey. This is what we want to do. We want to enable this ecosystem. Yeah, so this is a basic idea of a WISE Edge. I would say maybe you can treat it as a technology platform to create a digital journey platform. This is a WISE Edge. Okay, how do you think this?
Very good, and I mean, we're very early in this. I think you kind of have to look at this like maybe where we were with cloud AI 3 or 4 years ago. So we are just getting started at enabling. So I think we all heard about DeepSeek a few months ago. You know, this was kind of a moment when you realized what LLMs are doing can be done in a like you can distill them to a format where you can actually run them on the edge. Now, I'm not saying it's only LLMs that are running on the edge, but now we've seen some movement into so-called VLMs, vision language models. So now suddenly you're combining language with vision, And that is super interesting. I mean, you have a showcase here, but it's super interesting what that can do at the edge. So we're just starting to get into this, where the things we have all perceived as, wow, this is cool, this is what's happening, LLM, ChatGPT, whatever, in the cloud, we're just starting to see that some of that can be done at the edge. And it not only can be done at the edge, it makes in some cases a lot of sense to do it at the edge, because it's, if you have the hardware anyway, no more API call to the cloud, it's cheaper. We just said security. And in specific instances, it's also about latency. It's about how quickly can that model calculate something. So in the robot case, if you want to calculate where the robot arm grabs, you got to be very quick. So you can't do that in the cloud. In the retail space, when you're talking about now having a service robot that talks to you, you are saying, oh, show me where I can find X, Y, Z. You want an instant answer. So that shouldn't go to the cloud. It should be calculated right there.
Yeah.
So that's why what we're seeing here, this kind of architectures are really important to have. And I think the ecosystem approach you described is, you can't do it all yourself. No. So that's why we need to have different people who are good at things, focus on that, focus on specific applications and so on. So I think the approach is going in the right direction, and I think it'll be really interesting to come back here in the next years to see the uptake of that, because I actually do believe Edge AI has a very big future.
Oh, you make my life easier because we need to verify that this is around the right track.
Well, your customers will ultimately do, not me, but yeah.
All right. So it seems there are very exciting moments, and we can see that there will be very many exciting things happening on the edge. So could you please to give us some insights about what will be the next step, or although we know that it's just very beginning stage, but what will be happen, or in your prediction, what will bring on the edge?
It's always hard to predict what happens in AI, because nobody predicted a year or two ago where we are with AI right now. For example, there's a new term that has come up about agentic AI that a year ago nobody was really talking about it. Suddenly everybody is talking about it. So one of the predictions is agentic AI is going to be much bigger. Okay. And so agentic AI means that you're not only querying some AI and it gives you some information, but the AI is actually able to do something itself, autonomously action something, and kind of act also in a way that is not predetermined. Because before that we had robotic process automation, other things, but that AI can actually do some things autonomously. So that's kind of one of the things, and that across systems. And you can think of many cases. Again, I was touring your booth just earlier today. You have a showcase here as well, where you're showing that in the Smart Factory exhibit, you have one where a operator sees that something is wrong in the manufacturing, and the AI suggests that, not the manager sees, the AI suggests that one operator gets located to some other machine, and you say, okay, that's a good suggestion, and the AI autonomously goes into Microsoft Teams, chats to the person who is actually on the machine and says, you got to go somewhere else because there's a bottleneck there, you got to be deployed there. And then when the person is there, the AI automatically detects this person is there and sends the manager, okay, person has arrived, it's good. It's a very simple example, but this is a first kind of agentic example, and I think we're starting to see this pop up in all different kinds of cases where AI is suddenly taking the role of the orchestrator, of actually going out and allowing you to do some things. And sometimes you will have a human in the loop that will say, yes, do it, or no, do it, so it won't do everything by itself. But I think that's one of the futures we're going into in terms of agentic. I do want to say that, I mean, I've looked at this market for a longer time. The hardware or edge market as we know it has roughly grown 3 to 5% every year, with a little bit of ups and downs, for the last 20 years or so. Yes. Yeah? So it's not a very exciting market, yet it's a stable growth. Yeah. The AI market, as you all know, has grown 100, 200, 300+% in the last 3 years. And now these two are somehow coming together. And if you ask me to predict what is the growth of this market, it's very, very hard. Because you have I can definitely see the promise of AI. You see the first companies, like here you have Universal Robots, that are actually really doing something with AI at the edge, that are implementing things. So I think it'll lead to an acceleration of the rather boring edge market, if I will frame it that way, in the next years. Whether we see 10% growth or 30% growth will really be determined by the uptake and to see how big those use cases are. Whether it's in the manufacturing, and whether it's about the machine language models. Visual inspection has been a huge use case, and AI is really adding a new kind of element to that. So how quickly we can do that, how quickly companies will take this up, to be seen. But I think it's pretty clear that this AI market is at least a portion of the AI market. Let's just be very clear. We're not talking about the majority of the AI, but a portion of the AI market is coming to the edge, will make the edge much more intelligent and more interesting. And I think that will ultimately lead to a very interesting next 3 to 5 years for sure.
Yeah.
Because also, sorry, last point, that agentic layer is then also somehow at the edge, because those decisions that need to be made by AI sometimes feed back into the devices. So your robot or your machine or whatever, if it needs to adjust the parameter, at the end of the day, it needs to go through some Advantech hardware to actually get there. And so that'll be interesting.
Got it. So because we have last 3 minutes, but I really want to ask one very important question.
Please.
Because we have many customers online or in here. So if they would like to start their edge journey, what should they do? What's the first step?
Go to Advantech. No, just kidding.
Yes, for sure.
If you wanna start the edge journey, I mean, it's a very kind of general question. But first, you gotta understand where you are, and you gotta have a maturity. You cannot start the edge journey if you don't have the people who can do it. Exactly. So I think it's important to first look at the maturity. Are the skills there, or if you don't have the skills, do you have a couple of partners you can rely on that can make it happen? This can be an integrator, this can be a technology company, whatever. As with every other technology implementation, it starts with a challenge and business value. Yes. You can't just go out there and say, we're going to play with edge and see what happens. Yeah. That rarely ever leads to success. You got to ask yourself, which specific problems do I have in my factory, in my retail store, in my hospital, in my wherever I am? Which problem do I have that this edge technology might be of help? And then you got to work in steps, do a small proof of concept, work with a couple of partners or yourself to make it happen. Set some goals, what you would like to achieve, see if you can achieve it, and then scale from there, hopefully. Or decide, you know what, this didn't happen. I do talk to some people who are, whether it's in cloud or on edge, that say, it's the 5th time we are trying a maintenance co-pilot solution for our manuals for getting our machines maintained better, because we failed already 4 times. I've actually had that call last week with a semiconductor manufacturing or equipment company. And so these things don't happen overnight. You gotta carefully iterate and be clear that you gotta start with business value and kind of go step by step. I don't know if that reflects what you are seeing and hearing.
Then dedicate to come to Advantech, right?
At some point, hopefully, they will involve Advantech, whether it's early or late. I mean, that's. Okay. But I mean, I think Advantech might be part of the solution. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I think this is a digital journey. We cannot. In the future, maybe I would say in the very near future, it will be every edge company's core competency to establish this kind of intelligence. Yeah, but how to establish? We need to step by step to evaluate ourselves, to bring more people, or to incubate our existing employees, and then set up this kind of a capability.
Yeah, and maybe last point from my side. I mean, Advantech is a market leader in industrial PCs and some of this. And so I think you are on a good path, and I'm sure a lot of companies will come to you to seek your expertise here.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you. Thank you for all your listening.
Thank you.